Well, here's what we've been waiting for, or working towards. Putting the first panels on there. These are the panels that go between the boot cowl and the fabric on the airplanes. I get those put on there and then start putting the boot cowl on. Well, I've got the first panel on there loose. I've got all the screws started in there, but I have to wait before tightening them up. I want to wait to tighten them up until I get all the holes lined up all the way around and on the boot cowl. So I have to put this left-hand panel on that goes over the top of the right-hand panel. Anyway, I got the right-hand panel on, so we'll roll it back the other way and put the left-hand panel on. And this is why I went to the trouble to fix the rotisserie back up on here again. I got the first screw on the left-hand panel. I'll go ahead and keep screwing it up. I've got both the right hand and left hand panels in there now, mounted up there now. I've just got the screws mounted loosely on there, as I may have to adjust those panels a little bit to get the holes to line up for the boot cowl panels. I'm just going to go through everything in the cockpit area there and make sure everything is ready to be covered up, because once I put those boot cowl panels on there, they're not coming off again anytime in the near future. Well, I still have to mount the water rudder retract cable guide, and we could mount up the lower boot cowl panels. I brought the right hand lower boot cowl panel down to the hangar. I wanted to do something for anti-chafing, get rubbing between these panels where they made up with that other side panel, and then where it goes on the firewall, that's fringed and it can fret there. So I wanted something to prevent that chafing. I thought about using some cowling tape. This is the cowling tape here, the woven tape, and that would work good for anti-chafing on there, but I was afraid it might be a little bit too thick. I made up these panels without anything under them, and if I put something in there this thick, then it might not match anymore. The holes might not match up anymore. This would have sealed up nice there in that firewall, between the firewall and the boot cowl, but I'm just afraid that it wouldn't match up there. Well, I did get this Teflon tape here, and this is the same stuff that I used on the straps for the fuel tank on the outside belly tank, except this is thicker. This is 10 mils and that other was 5 mils. So I put this stuff on there, cleaned up, washed the inside of that panel down with some paint thinner, and then put this stuff on there. Anyway, that's done. That one's ready to go on. I'm having a heck of a time here. I can't seem to get these holes to line up here on this panel, on this lower right hand boot cowl panel. I had it all mounted up and everything lined up here on the top, and when I went to go put the screws in the bottom, I couldn't get them anywhere close to line them up. I don't know what is the matter. I had this thing on and off there probably 24 times while I was building all of this stuff, fitting it all up, and it fit up pretty good, but I can't get it to line up now. Well, I've moved this a little bit, thinking maybe this curve came out of here a little bit while it was being bounced around here, painting and that kind of stuff. I had this tape on here, this Teflon tape that I put on for anti-chafe tape, that 10 mil tape I had on here on this side, and I took it off. It didn't really seem to make a difference on it last night, so I fooled around with it a little bit here now, and I can almost get the holes lined up. It doesn't want to line up right. Put it underneath the heater to heat it up a little bit, thinking maybe it might expand a little bit and make it a little bit easier, but that shouldn't make any difference on it. It is cold, and the aluminum does shrink, but it wouldn't shrink that much, I wouldn't think, and that would be a problem later. Still not wanting to do it. Oh well, keep working on it here. See what I can do. Well, as I said, I took that 10 mil Teflon tape off of there. I was trying it without it on, and I could get it to kind of fit up. Oh, I put some of the 5mm tape on there and I couldn't get it to fit up. I took that off and I tried it bare and I still couldn't get it to fit up, but it'd come awful close. So the conclusion that I've come up with, I put fabric on those little U-channels and stuff on there, that former stuff, just to help keep it from chafing, keep it from rubbing and kind of seal up so there's not a metal to metal contact there, and kind of seal that up a little bit in that joint there. And the only thing I can think of now is that that's added enough thickness to everything that those holes don't line up properly in there. So I'm going to take these side panels off and strip that fabric off of there and then see if I can get it to work like that. I took that right panel off and took that left panel loose. I stripped off that fabric that I'd put on there, and I went and got some MEK and washed the polytack or polybrush or whatever it was that I had sticking that stuff down with off. I'll let this MEK, make sure it flashes all off there before I put that painted surfaces up on there. I don't want those to melt. Anyway, I want to turn everything off here now, and we'll come back out tomorrow and try this again. Well, I finally got that right side lower half of or third of the boot cowl on there. I put a screw in this bottom upper side here on the number 6 screw in there, and then I had to get some levers, some little punches and stuff, and stick in those holes and kind of force that thing around to get the holes to line up. And then the same thing on this upper side. When I got up there, I just had to line them up. It was kind of hard going, but I got them all lined up and the screws in them. So even with all of the tape and everything else off of there, they still didn't want to line up very well. Oh, I don't know, maybe the paint, I guess, the thickness of the paint might have done it, but I thought I had enough oversize in those holes that they would line up, but I had a heck of a time doing it. This outside here on it, where it mates up to the firewall, that went pretty good, except for this bracket right here that's in there for the cowling mount, and I could not get those screws to start in there. And I looked in there, I get the holes lined up, and then I've got floating nut plates in there, and the nut plates wouldn't quite line up, so I finally got a pointed scribe to stick in there to get the nut plates to line up, and I still couldn't get the screws started. And finally I tried a number 6 screw. I got number 8 screws and everything here. I thought sure I had number 8s in that, but apparently not. I got a number 6 screw or 2 number 6 screws and stuck in there, and they went right in, and they tightened up. So that must be what was in there, was the number 6s. Anyway, that one is on. Now I'll go get the one for the left side and see how much work I have to do to get it on there. Well, the left side lower boot cowl is on, and I had just about as much trouble with it as I did the right side. I had to put some punches in there in each one of those holes and kind of pull it around and stretch it and get the holes to line up. On the inside ones, on the rear ones, those are all number 6s, and getting those holes lined up was a chore. Out here on the outside on the firewall, that all went real well, especially since I knew that I had number 6 nut plates in that bracket down there at the bottom. Anyway, that is on there. I'll go get the upper boot cowl and get it ready to put on, and I'll make sure I've got everything all tied up and right behind the instrument panel and stuff now. There's a couple of things I have to do to it. I'll have to hook up those tubes for the windshield defroster, and then there's a power cord for spider tracks that goes through the top of the boot cowl there. Anyway, I guess I might as well go get it and bring it down here. The boot cowl's sitting up here now, and I've spent a few minutes figuring out the routing of these ducts, how to put them in there. I had them all lined up in there and everything, but without having the boot cowl on there, the top to reference it to, it was hard to determine exactly where to put them. Now I've got them lined up in there, and they routed up through where they don't interfere with any of the wiring or anything in there. And I've got them tied into a couple of diagonals that come down, well, these diagonals that come down this way, with tie wrap just to hold them in, and sticking up through there. And that's how much I'm going to cut off, is that much. I've got a little bit extra in there. There's just a little bit of cushion in there, so that'll be fine. This will be the power cable for the spider tracks tracker. These little fittings here go in these tubes. Oops. And that finishes them out over here on the top. They go down in on the top of the boot cowl there. That pulls through, and then we'll have a clamp around them on the underside of that. And I still have to make a shield that goes over that, a little deflector that keeps the hot air from coming out directly on the windshield to help prevent it from distorting there. So that all looks good. I think I've got that figured out. I can mark these off now and cut those off. Everything looks good inside of there. All my wiring looks good and everything. I still have to make a little shield that goes over this cutout here where it goes around this V-brace. Otherwise, it all looks good. Ready to cut these off. This, I can put the grommet on this anytime here, as long as it's sticking through that hole, and then fit the grommet in that hole once it's there.